We're here at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, and we're talking to Carey McWilliams.
Yep.
And you're an author of 2 books now. I'm looking at those. Your first book was Guide Dogs and Guns. Unfortunately, you said that's no longer in print.
No, it's a Library of Congress book now, so you can get that on Talking Books for the Blind, but it's currently out of print on Amazon.
Okay, but we can find the copy on used, right? It's out there.
Yes,
we can
it's
find
out
them
there.
used.
If you look it up, it's out there, available in audio.
Right on, and that's more of an autobiography, and you talk about your experiences with being a shooter and with the guide dogs, and then you've had some experience with some publicity, and that you describe that in that book as well.
Yep, I described the way I was originally treated by the mainstream media, which I was caught off guard to begin with. The first interview was with Brian Gumbel, and I talk about it in the book. How they asked me a series of questions and then they didn't use any of them and tried to ambush me, and I kind of halfway through the interview people told me that they were watching it and they could tell on my face. I went, "Oh, that's what you're trying to do," you know. And
kind of became clear with the cameras rolling.
Well, yeah, because I wasn't used to that kind of attention. I mean, so when I got that kind of thing, I thought, they were going to be a little bit more forward than they were. So.
Right on. I've looked at the book before and I've thumbed through it, and it's really interesting that you talk about your experiences with the guide dogs also, and that's pretty neat stuff.
I talk about how, see, the thing is that a lot of people, and that's what I also talking about in the new book, try to clarify it, is that everybody thinks, well, because you have a guide dog, therefore they will protect you, people will leave you alone. Well, that has a lot of misconceptions. A guide dog is meant to be docile in public. It's not meant to be aggressive, otherwise you wouldn't be able to have it. You know what I mean? It's people getting eaten by guide dogs, all of a sudden it'd be illegal to have them.
Exactly. They'd be banned like everything else, right?
Right. I've heard of a woman in Minneapolis, I think it was, she was assaulted and raped in front of her guide dog.
Yeah.
So they're meant to be just basically there to work, and if they think of it as a deterrent, fine, but in practice, no.
For practical use, as someone who could be potentially a higher target, then you wanted to explain that to people in both communities, that misconception.
Well, and when I came out with the Guide Dogs and Guns, I did it with real purpose because I was dealing with a civil rights issue in Minnesota where I had passed a shooting test, and I was supposed to get a gun permit there, and I was denied by a sheriff who was up for re-election that year. And I didn't feel like anybody knew the whole true story because they were getting half-baked information. So that's why I wrote the original one. And
well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it got some people thinking and stuff, and that was the whole point.
And that's what I really like about the Gun Rights Policy Conference, is we get to see some different things that we're not used to and learn about different areas of the Second Amendment and the struggle to have the rights for all these different
well, blind people aren't blind people first. We're Americans first, and
exactly.
We do require protection, and we need to be able to defend ourselves, because throwing blind people to the wolves might look okay because, hey, there's only a set amount of us, but what happens when they start taking gun rights away from people who are deaf, people who are older, people who have
arthritis?
There you go.
Yep.
Well, that's the snowball. So.
And I'm glad you wrote the first one, because it got you practice to write the second one, which is out now.
Yep.
Shooting Guide for the Blind. I've been thumbing through this one now, and you've got all kinds of information. How many CCWs do you have?
I have currently 5.
Right on. Now these aren't because you need them. You don't live in Rhode Island. This is because you've sought them out.
Right, and the one they made North Dakota kind of well after I did it. Some politicians used it to get rid of the shooting part, which I didn't approve of, because I think you should know at least what a trigger is. And
now when we're talking, this isn't like a figurative license. You get your CCW just like everybody else, and you take the shooting test and you're able to shoot. So it's more than just like I've got it as a credential. You've got it because you carry, and because you want to let people know that it's possible for.
Correct. It's kind of hard to believe, but there's I took photocopies of some of my shooting documentation from the United States Army. I've been completely blind since age 10, lost my eyesight suddenly in a matter of well, really hours.
Wow.
And then at age 15, I picked up my first firearm, which was a fully automatic M16 at a Army base, and they let me shoot it and gave me some instruction on how to disassemble, reassemble, do all that stuff with the other cadets who were going into the military. In fact, what I did back then in that Air Force Auxiliary is I ran the field radios. I guided planes into targets on the ground, kind of thing. That, just by relaying what somebody told me on a map to them. I was the only one with the radio license from the Air Force. So, but basically that's what I did, and I took that gun training, that gun experience of the M16, and I took an Army ROTC course in college for pistol marksmanship, and I got documentation in that as well of that. On my transcript, I got an A in that, and that had several shooting exams with various pistols at various ranges. So.
And then you've done extensive hunting as well. You document that in there.
Yeah, I got where I talk about how to hunt ducks, deer, various game, and then how to dress them, and the rules, regulations about getting fish. Some of the stuff that people may or may not know about hunting, tracking, and so forth, being blind.
And that's where, as I say, you put that spin on it. You other blind people know about your path and some tips and.
Well, I basically, since I got this whole thing started with the concealed weapons permit stuff, and I've gotten so much attention worldwide. Basically, I'm not an egotist. I don't flaunt that, but basically, I think it's my mission and responsibility to educate not only blind people about what they're capable of doing, if they have the mental faculties, of course.
Sure.
And also to educate those who are blind, or not blind, but sighted, who might be not being able to figure this out, or confused, or maybe just they have somebody that they know is blind, but they don't know how to go about getting them out hunting or doing other stuff.
Awesome. And I can only imagine that must be liberating to have that experience, and then to have that under your belt that you've been able to go hunting. But the first time you get to go hunting and have a successful hunt and experience it.
Well, I like, I basically like bird hunting, but I also like hunting dangerous game. I've hunted bears and alligators and mountain lions. And I would love to get to Africa and hunt some of the African game if I could. There's an outfitter that I'm looking at who hunts crocodiles on the Nile.
Oh, wow.
And I have to hit a quarter-size kill spot at 100 yards on the gator's head, on the crocodile's head, and from a sitting position, so with a 375 H&H. So that'd be tough just on the range. Yeah, exactly. But I've taken down game further. I hunted with the CEO of Savage Arms for antelope in Wyoming, and from a parked vehicle, I shot an antelope at 156 yards. He went nowhere. It went in his shoulder and out his rear end, and the guy that was dressing him said there were no major organs remaining, so he never even felt it.
Right on.
So it was so funny to watch that guy. The CEO guy, when I did it, he goes straight down. We had a reporter in the car, and this was related in an article called "Bonds Forged for Life" and stuff, and it was really funny how the guy reacted to that shot, because he didn't know I was going to be able to do that or nothing. So it was kind of neat to see.
Very cool. So I appreciate you taking the time away from the conference. We should go back in and listen, but I did have one more question about the cover of the Guide Dogs and Guns book. I'm an AK guy, so I'm looking at this, and what is going on with that bayonet? Is it a Photoshop thing, or?
Nope, that's real.
So you've modified an AK bayonet?
Nope, that was an AK that I had at the time that had a bayonet from, I think it was what is it called? It's third.
Oh, so it's a third-party company.
Yeah, it's a third-party company.
Okay. I was wondering, the
the
shape of the blade looked a little bit different, and I thought maybe you had modified it.
And it had a folding stock too.
Right,
So,
it looked like it had a Tapco folder on it.
Yeah, so I basically, it was my gun at the time, and traded it in for a different gun. I think I traded it in for my AR-15. And basically I thought, well, I was in my mom has passed on. I have no living parents now. But I was sitting in her dining room, and I asked them if they could crop because it should show me kind of leaning back sort of with this thing.
Exactly.
And that's because I was sitting on a stool.
Oh, okay.
And I had them Photoshop take that out of there.
Okay.
And then just transport the picture of me, the cane, and the gun. So, to the background. That was kind of my design idea of being blind. I used to paint houses for a living.
Okay.
So being blind, it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm used to dealing with very traditionally sighted stuff. So.
Right on. Well, it's an inspiration. I'm going to put my hand out and shake your hand.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for taking the time again,
Thank you.
Thanks for writing the books.
Appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, it's my job to educate and stuff. That's basically what I do.
Right on. Thanks again.
The guys and gals of GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching GunWebsites.com.